This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. In the modern world, people love to talk. Give somebody the freedom to express themselves on a topic that they're passionate about makes for a very long conversation. Usually those conversations are very one-sided, or each party ends up waiting for their turn to talk. You can't hear what somebody's saying if you're speaking. The words will become mumbled and the meaning will be lost. The most difficult thing to do is to listen. Sometimes, when somebody comes to you to speak, all they're asking you to do is absorb their words, quietly allowing them to release the burden off their chest, without giving judgment or opinion, allowing them to verbally work out whatever issue is on their mind. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome back one of our favorite people in the world, and that's Laurice Duffy.
Revisiting an old friend.
That's right, to talk about the suffering of a life coach. Laurice has taken a talent that she found at a very young age and made a career out of it. Laurice, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
She's still at a young age, though.
Well, from what I read about Laurice, from a very, very young age, little baby Laurice. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car. Laurice, thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm trying to remember what episode you were on. God, that was a long time ago.
It was in the summer. It was not this past summer, but the summer before.
I do remember where I was the first time I talked to you. So Mike tells me, I got a friend, great story, tells me about your husband, Kevin, and I call you. I was pulling in, I was in the town I work in, I was pulling in right by Town Hall, and I was on the phone with you. I actually pulled over into a little side parking lot, and you got a little bit into your story, and I said, stop, you're perfect.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, you didn't want to take away the newness of just like saying it as it,
The spontaneity.
Yes, exactly.
But see, you know what's funny about Laurice? I mean, I've known Laurice for a long time. I mean, I was at her wedding.
Yes.
That's how long I've known Laurice. But she's the type of person that you just want to hate. Because
it's too nice.
She exactly. She's so joyful and outgoing and everything. And to sit there and I think,
it's disgusting.
Why am I such an asshole?
Well, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that.
That's an offhanded compliment.
So we're gonna touch a little bit on your previous episode because it was so long ago. But if you want to listen to that, I want to just invite our audience to go back into our audio days when we were recording in the basement, back when it was just a hobby for us, and listen to Laurice's episode because it's really heart wrenching.
The suffering of losing a partner.
And it's really a beautiful, beautiful story. The love you and your husband Kevin had.
Thank you.
And have passed down to your kids.
But things have changed a little bit since the last time we saw each other. Things are moving up. You're in a different location. You don't have to walk downstairs. You actually have to walk up.
Yeah, I love it. It's the real deal. Congratulations, you guys.
But as much as things change is as much as they stay the same. Of course, we always take a social media question from our audience. And this one comes from Phil_Lizzo. I don't know maybe that's his full name. What liability do you have with what you say? Now, Laurice, you're a life coach, and I'm not even sure what the parameters are of what a life coach can say and what they can't say, where they overstep their bounds. Ultimately, it's about trying to stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. So what kind of liability does a life coach have?
I would say different from a therapist, a life coach is all about bringing someone from functional to optimal. We don't dive into the past as much as a therapist would, although we go there. But basically, coaching is more about asking questions.
You're looking more for like blockers of success more than anything else.
Absolutely,
from the past.
Absolutely. And I'm looking to really dig deep. I'm looking to hear things that aren't being said. And that's a big part of my job. And really navigating a journey of helping someone sort of see around their own blind spots, really recognize what beliefs they're carrying that are no longer serving them. So in answer to your question, I would say that it's less about giving advice and more about asking questions and certainly asking permission to share things that I'm noticing or things that I'm sometimes hearing that aren't being said.
Well, asking a question is to pretty much to elicit a response so you could work off of that response to see where their mindset is at.
Absolutely.
I really like that you're helping them navigate around some of the blind spots. A blind spot is something obviously you can't see. They're not seeing it, and if they could see it, doesn't do well for your profession. They might not need you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my hope is that to get them to a point where they don't need me. This isn't a forever. I want to get them to a point where they feel really good about where they are and they've recognized and begin living a life that's really serving them.
Man, maybe we should hire Laurice as our
I think we said that last time, too.
Suffering Podcast life coach.
we need that.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
You know what I mean? Listen.
I mean, we deal with, you and I are on the same page with this because we've spoken about this several times. We have to be very careful that and explain to people we're not therapists.
Sure.
We're experienced people. That's all we are.
So the only degree I have is in like bullshit. You know, like you said, I mean, you don't give advice, but we kind of give advice because that's all we could do. Because we don't go through what people are going through. You know, we can't. I could barely dig into my own mind. Never mind digging into someone else's mind. You know, so I think, to me, the only thing is, I mean, I don't think I won't say we're not held liable for what we say.
We have 0 degrees.
Yeah, we have 0 degrees.
Yeah.
So there's really not much. I mean, the only thing I could do is try to soothe someone over and get them the help that we need. You know, we say it all the time from this podcast. Now we know we don't know a lot, but we know a lot of people that could help people in different directions.
So we can sort of guide people.
We navigate around the blind spots.
Yes. Now, if you're looking for a degree and you want to talk about movements and Renaissance literature, I can help you out because I do have that English degree. But beyond that, giving advice comes strictly for, you know, and again, let me make it very, very clear. I'm pretty, advice is the wrong word to use. I try never to give anybody advice. I might give them a suggestion. Hey, look here, try this spot. Sure. So it's suggesting where to navigate. And that's why a lot of times when we bring people in here, I'm very careful that whatever suffering they have endured, that they're not in the depths of their suffering.
Absolutely. Yes. You know, I completely understand that.
But, you know, like you said, it's not advice. It's a suggestion. Our suggestion is based solely on whether it be personal experience or personal feeling, you know, because we don't have the degree.
Well, but what I hear you saying is there's a lot of, or there could be even just personal liability in, you know, someone who is so fragile, someone who's really in the depths of their grief, that's, or whatever suffering they're going through.
In the throes of their suffering.
Yeah, that's not a time when I think you want to really be giving advice.
And that's when you don't want to slip up either. You say the wrong thing.
Yeah. You have to tread lightly.
But we've had offers for people to come in here that are in the depths, in the throes of whatever suffering they're enduring, and I've turned them down. Mike has turned them down.
We had one just last week.
Yeah.
I told the guy, I said, listen, you're in your suffering right now. When you come through that suffering, then you come talk to us.
I have to compliment you guys for that. I give you a lot of credit because someone who's, you know, in that area, you know, or just in that stage could really be great for, you know, getting a lot of listeners.
Yeah. But
so
we don't do it for...
Right, and I love that.
We don't do it for the listeners.
The person. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the listens are going to come.
Of course.
I'm like Kevin said. We're not. If you're in the depths of your suffering, you need to talk to a professional. You don't need to come to talk to 2 idiots sitting behind a mic. That ain't going to help you. You may feel better about yourself when you look at both of us, but
I think if that were to happen, we'd be exploitation artists, and we're not exploitation artists. We're here to talk to people who have been through some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll say something where somebody will gravitate to a little bit later on and say, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Let me give it a shot. And maybe it'll work for them. Maybe it won't work for them. Yeah. Phil, thank you so much for sending that one, and keep sending them in, and we'll try to get them on the air. Now, I would be remiss. We just got a new sponsor, and we're about to do an event there. By the time this airs, the event will have already happened. 3 Acres Luxury Condominiums in Jersey City. They've been wonderful to us. It's one of those places. It's almost like a live-in resort. It's got everything there. It's got a pool. It's got a game room. It's got a restaurant. It's got a bar. It's got.
You never have to leave there.
Classes. I was just there last Friday night, and they were holding an art class, and everybody comes down. It's like it's a real community, and we love them. And we just want to give a big shout out to them because they're so great.
And they have a
that's
pool
nice.
on the roof too, so you don't have to, you don't have to leave. You can go right up on
Well,
the
in
pool.
Jersey City, I mean, look at all the restaurants. I mean, it's a great place to be, even if you don't have the luxury.
It's becoming Hoboken adjacent.
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
So, Laurice, last time we spoke to you, and it's been some time, why don't you give everybody a little bit of a recap on your story?
Sure.
It's a good one. It's more. It deserves more than a recap, but unfortunately, we only got an hour. So.
Yeah. So the quick version is I married the love of my life, and we had a wonderful marriage.
Gross.
And,
I know.
It's gross.
Vomit.
he was a goodie. But we had 4 boys. 3 are triplets. And we went through IVF to get pregnant with the 3 boys. And our youngest, what I call our bonus, he was natural. And we lived a wonderful life, a lot to be grateful for. And my husband coached boys in basketball, football, and baseball. He was very athletic. He was very healthy. Of all the things I worried about, I never worried about losing my husband. It just was not on my radar of things to worry about. And
That was the rock.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I said, though, he was so athletic and so full of life, you'd think he's the last one to get sick.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I said, I've known Kevin since 1987, I think it was, when I first met him, 87, 88.
Yeah.
When we first got in a pipe fitters union together.
Right.
And he
right,
came
right.
down with ALS,
So
correct?
he just had some weird symptoms after like 9 months of seeing doctors. He was diagnosed with ALS, and we were told he would probably have about 3 to 5 years to live. And it was a punch in the stomach. We really thought we got all the scary possibilities out of the way. And this was just a blow. I mean,
If I remember correctly, there was also misdiagnosis at one point.
We found out about Lyme disease and
that was it,
thought
Lyme
maybe
disease.
it was a misdiagnosis, only to go in this full circle of therapies, diets, IV antibiotic for Kevin to start declining. And it was at that point that I said to him, I'm not sure if we're searching for answers or running from the truth. And back to the ALS specialist, where we were told, I don't know if you have Lyme disease or not. What I know for sure is that you have ALS. That was
Talk about a gut punch.
Oh, yeah, it was.
It's just a slow ALS. One of a guy I went to high school with, who ended up being a football coach for my high school. I watched the whole digression of what ALS does to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brutal disease because it's not. We all hope for when it's our time, and it's all going to be our time sooner or later to be, lights out.
Absolutely.
But to watch that, oh God, it's got to be gut wrenching.
It's cruel. It's a cruel disease. I had written that Kevin lost his battle with ALS. And then the next sentence I said, actually, it was never a fair fight from the beginning. And it's a waiting game. That's all you can do.
And you just watch him deteriorate the whole time.
And it's a deterioration. If losing my husband wasn't the worst thing that was happening to me, what I realized was that watching my 4 boys watch their father, their coach, their strong, very mentally
They're
tough
rock. Yeah.
father, best friend, hero deteriorate was heartbreaking.
This is a very tough question, and I didn't get a chance to ask you this the last time you were on. And it's not meant to be disrespectful at all, but I watched a lot of things on Dr. Kevorkian, and I know he did his suicide machine on a couple patients with ALS.
Mm-hmm.
And just he did video of it before to make sure that they were of sound mind and this is what they wanted to. I guess he was trying to cover his butt a little bit. That's how bad of a disease this is. When Kevin was going through his struggles and seeing this strong man go into what he finally became at the end, was that ever something that maybe crossed his mind?
No.
No, he stayed
No.
strong the whole time?
He wanted hope. No, he wanted hope the whole time.
That's a stoic man.
He really wanted hope.
Kevin was the type of person to quit anything.
Oh, no, right. Kevin would, we were in hospice and Kevin would, he couldn't speak any longer. It took his ability to speak away. And he would just give the boys a look, and the boys knew, like, get up, your grandparents are here, let them sit down. Or if somebody used profanity, he would just give them a look that meant you better cut it out right now. he was a father to them until the day he died, and with no ability to speak. But he still got his point across that wasn't okay, and he was going to father them until his last breath, and he did.
You know, it's funny. He couldn't speak. Kevin was someone who wouldn't shut up.
Well,
That's what it took to shut him up?
let me tell you something really quick. It's just a cute little funny story. So all of my children had Coxsackie. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but
I
it's
do.
awful.
I do.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So one of them had it so bad that the doctor said, "I've never seen it this bad." Okay. So now you have to understand, I have 4 boys that have Coxsackie, and a husband that's in our bedroom and with a terminal illness. Well, my sister got him a bell. It was just a little bell because he could no longer speak. So this way he would. So I'm caring for the other boy, the boys. And all of a sudden, this bell goes bing, 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 bing. So I just drop everything and I run into the room and he points, he's thirsty. I go, "All right, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm thirsty is bing, 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 like you just did. That's I can't breathe anymore." So let's just get clear on, So we did still have a sense of humor when appropriate, with certain things.
Well, Kevin always had a great sense of
He
humor.
had a
too.
great
Oh,
sense
he
of
was-
humor.
Turned poor Kevin into Hector Salamanca from Breaking Bad, just with the bell. Poor guy.
That
Wait,
bell.
so you watch a 3-year digression of the love of your life. Kevin passes. The inevitability of the passing was certain, but again, I'm sure when it hit, it was still a surprise. Now, his suffering is over. Your suffering has just begun. You got 4. How old were the boys when he passed?
So they were 14 and 11 when he was diagnosed, and 17 and I think 14 when he passed away. The boys were at the end of their junior year in high school, and Aiden was the end of 8th grade.
That's what I was going to say. He didn't get to see him graduate high school in 8th grade.
Nope.
But now you're left, and now your suffering begins, which is the whole crux of the last episode that you were in.
Yes.
And you pick yourself up. And, what kind of strength did Kevin's passing give you?
Halfway through this, and you have to remember, I started grieving when Kevin was diagnosed. And although we thought it was Lyme disease, so we had hope for a while, like I had said, then we were brought back to reality with being told that it actually was ALS. And when we told our kids for the second time, nobody said anything. One of the boys said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said yes. And I couldn't understand why they were asking me that question when Kevin was sitting right there and he was the one who was going to die. And I thought about it for days. And what I realized was they knew they were going to lose their father. They were watching him deteriorate before their eyes. And what they wanted to be sure of was that they weren't going to lose their mom too. The mom that they knew, the mom that I always had been. And that gave me some of my power back, because what I realized is I was trying so hard. I don't know if I was trying to run from reality or just trying to have hope, to believe that he was going to be okay, because I couldn't imagine that they were going to, that this wonderful husband and father and, brother and son-in-law and friend, exactly, would be taken from us. It just didn't make any sense. But once I realized that I didn't have control over Kevin getting well, I realized that I did have control over something, and that was my children and how I was going to lead my family in this crisis, in this tragedy. And I realized that that's where my power was. In
navigating these troubles.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like, from what I know about you, you've always had that power to navigate through others' troubles, including your own.
Yeah. I would say that's probably a strength of mine, and has been, thankfully. I definitely was. I realized that my children have never lost anything. Probably the worst thing that they had ever lost was like a championship baseball game, So here we are, in this tragic situation, and I realized that they were going to follow my lead. And I was very mindful of who I was going to be while we were living life, while waiting for death. And that's, that was basically the crux of it. It was that was our reality. And
That was your mindful journey.
yeah.
Gee, how do I know? How do I know that name? Obviously,
What a great segue.
Laurice is the host of Mindful Journey, which you can tell everybody where you can find Mindful Journey, the podcast.
So the podcast is actually Aligned and Awakened.
Okay.
A Mindful Journey is the name of my company, of my coaching company.
Okay.
So, yes. So absolutely being really mindful on this journey of navigating life while waiting for death. And I knew that, like I said, I knew that the boys would follow my lead, and I knew that I had to decide who I was going to be. I couldn't change what was going to happen, but I could change how it was going to happen until he passed. And that's when I really gained my power back, was really choosing who I was going to be, and choosing how our home was going to be, and what I was going to teach the boys in their first experience of something really, really hard.
I mean,
Really
I think
hard.
that's important what you said too. You can't change what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can change how it's going to happen and how it's going to affect you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and who I was going to be while it was going on, who I was going to be during and after, for my kids, who I was going to be for my husband while it was going on.
But it's a great metaphor for a roadmap for a happier life. We all know we're born, we die. We all know that. That's a given. What you do in between those goalposts, that's going to make the difference of whether you're just going to worry about your death. And then there's plenty of people out there that all they do is worry about death, or you're going to live.
Yeah.
You're going to live.
Yeah. And that's a choice. And I think for me, teaching my kids that there is life after death, some people really think, well, I'm honoring my husband by, really being sad and really grieving and mourning their death and just being not living. I don't agree with that. I believe that my job is to show my children that there's life after death, to honor my husband's life by living my life and continuing to live a life. I remember when he was diagnosed, he said to me, we were going to a baseball game when we were driving, and he says, this is before we thought it was Lyme disease. So we were told the first time it's ALS, and we're driving, and he says, I don't ever want you to get married. And I said, wow, I'm only 40. I don't even know what I was.
You should have
at the time,
told me that
like
right before the wedding.
I was like, oh, wow. I go, I'm only like 47 years old. I go,
Contract says death do
yeah,
us part.
exactly, right. I go, don't you think that's a little selfish? And he said the sweetest thing. He said, yes, I do. He said, I think you should date and you should have a boyfriend, but I don't ever want you to get married, because who will you go to when you come to heaven? I want you to come to me. And I thought, oh, you are just so adorable.
All right. Well, hold
Hold
that
that
thought
right there.
Drew, I'm gonna hold that, because I want to write that down if I'm ever on my deathbed. Okay, you're never allowed to marry.
Kevin and Mike are throwing up now.
I told you I had a Slim Jim before, and it's still repeating on me. Almost. But the one story that you told us about Kevin that really epitomizes who Kevin was. When
Usually we have 15 mics in here. Now we got two Kevins that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think the triplets had a championship baseball game, and your younger son just had
I know exactly the story you're talking about. It was a beautiful story, if you want me to share.
Absolutely.
As I said, 3 of the boys are triplets, and they played on a tri-borough baseball team together. And at the end of the season, there's a all-star team that's made up of a few of the teams. 2 of the boys made it and 1 didn't. And as a parent, it's just heartbreaking, and you feel so bad, and you want to be excited for the 2 that made it, but you want to be,
you don't want to rub it in their face.
Well, yeah, you want to be thoughtful.
You're good. You
about
2 are good, but you suck.
Yeah, it was, balancing things like that. We're always, we did pretty good at it, but it was certainly a dance. Anyway, the day of the game came, And wouldn't you know it, our son who didn't make the All-Star team would play in a consolation. All the kids who didn't make the All-Star would play in a consolation game. So don't you know, the day comes and the consolation game and the All-Star game are in two different fields at the same time, same day. So Kevin he loved good sports. He loved watching athletics and really good athletes play, whatever they were playing. So he came home quickly, as he always did, never wanted to miss the boys in anything they were doing. And he jumped in the shower, and I made the comment about us going to the All-Star game. Like, oh, come on, whatever I said. And he quickly corrected me and said, oh, no, I'm not going to the All-Star game. No, I'm going to the consolation game. I never want to send the message to any of the boys that they're less than or not as important because, or the game they're playing in is less important because they're not on the All-Star team. We're going to go to his game. And I was like, oh my gosh, how, as a mother, you think you're the one that's so compassionate and thinking about, and I thought, how could I have missed that? And thank God he's such a beautiful person. And what a wonderful opportunity. He nailed it. I mean, he nailed it. And
Speaks a lot to his character.
It really does.
But you know what? One drawback, Kevin, like you said, he loved good sports,
yeah.
He was a Jets fan.
Oh my God! Well, I can't.
I'll give you one worse than that. He's a Red
Red
Sox
Sox
fan.
fan.
I mean, not for me, but for most people.
Well, we just had a Red Sox player in here last week.
Okay.
So,
But like you said, he was a Red Sox fan, but died of a Yankee disease.
yes.
Yeah.
So
You can't make it up.
I can't knock the Jets. Our good friend Pastor Adam Bird, he's the chaplain for the Jets. So I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm a Jets fan adjacent.
Yeah,
So they're different divisions. But getting back to what I said earlier, is you seem to always had this power or this talent to try to direct some people. You said from a very young age that you tell us a little bit about that.
So I think that, I think there's in every friend group, there's the one that sort of people go to sort of for advice or, opinion or even in my family, I felt like as I got older, my brother would always say, you're so wise for your years. And, I think there's some things that just come naturally to us that we don't understand why. I come from a family of really good cooks. I'm not one of them. So, who knows why or what? I also come from a family of artists. You wouldn't want me as your Pictionary, partner. So, but this was just something that always just felt very natural to me. I feel like I can really create a safe place for people and a quick connection and really hear things that aren't being said and really understand why. I think a lot of times people get very tripped up about the details of a problem instead of the symptom of a problem. I like to get to the symptom of the problem. We save a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Kill it at its roots.
Exactly.
You're
exactly.
you're a big picture person.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm having problems dating. Okay, I'm having problems dating. Well, let's look at why you're having problems dating.
Maybe because you're married.
That's always a trip up. Or maybe you're just ugly.
See, I was trying to be nice.
Maybe you're just ugly. So, was there ever an opportunity for somebody came to you for advice and you gave them what you thought was the best advice that you could give, and it turned out not so well?
Not in my coaching.
No, I'm talking about
just in general.
Prior to when your friends who came to you for advice.
Yeah, I think there are times that people really get stuck in their story and they, in some cases, like talking about the problem and aren't necessarily looking for a solution. So have there been times that I have just recognized that maybe they're not ready?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not ready to hear this, or maybe they're not ready to move on to a solution. They just are stuck in the problem. And I need to just respect that without judgment. But I can't continue talking about it.
Yeah, we brought that up here before, resisting success.
Yep.
Some people just get in that rut and they get comfortable in that rut,
Yeah.
and they just want to dwell on their problems And that's like them being in a hole
Yeah.
and just reaching out and pouring more dirt on themselves.
There's a lot of times when people will ask for a solution, and if they don't like the solution that I know this from personal experience, they don't like the solution that you're offering or the suggestion that you're offering them, so they resist it until you say something that they want to hear. You know, there's a big difference between coming to somebody for advice and being open to whatever their advice is or their suggestion is, versus I want to hear this one suggestion, but it's got to come from you, and I'm going to try to get that one suggestion out of you. I know a lot of people like that. They only want to be told one way when it's not from your perspective, how you're looking at it, it's not the way to do it. Has that ever happened to you?
In my own life, I'm very much about tell me what. I do a lot of coaching programs, and a lot of it's very positive, and let's share what everything, what each other did so well. And I always say, please share with me what I didn't do so well. That's how I'm going to grow. That's how I'm going to do better. So,
you don't work on your deficiencies. You work on you don't work on your strength. You work on your deficiencies.
Absolutely. My belief is that's how we grow. Not everybody's ready to hear that or want such truth, but my belief is that, truth, Liz Gilbert says something that is really profound, and I will botch it up, but it's that every truth is kind, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And every untruth or every truth, I'll get back to you on that. It's really good. And I can't get it right.
Well, you know what you need to do? You need to go to one of our sponsors, that's Grand Saloon, and have a drink. And then you will remember what Liz Gordon said.
Liz Gilbert.
We'll be sitting there after this, and Laurice is like, now I got it. Now she'll tell the bartender.
Keep rolling again.
The bottom line is that, telling the truth is kind, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Lying is unkind, even if it makes people comfortable. So it's like and I believe that. So I'm not somebody you're going to come to if you want to be lied to.
You would, thankfully, you're a woman, because you would never make a good husband. Okay, because that is women, when it comes to coming out of the closet, how does this look?
Oh.
Okay, they all want to be lied to. They all want to be lied to.
So I will share with you because I have 4 sons, and I had a husband that was he was a big complimenter. And I tell the boys, if I say, like, guys, what do you think of these shoes, or what do you think? If they say fine, I tell them nobody wants to be fine. Tell me to put on another pair of shoes, or tell me that they look great. Don't ever say, and you're going to have a wife one day and possibly daughters. I promise you, they don't ever want to be fine. No, I call it the other F word. Nobody wants to be fine.
4-letter word, too.
That's right.
What I do when my wife comes out is, what does this look? I just drop my mouth, and because I don't know what to say. Because if I say you look good, you're just telling me that because you want to go. If I say you don't look good, I can't believe you're so rude. So there's no wins.
No win.
My mouth just drops.
It's a no-win situation. So I usually say, fine.
I got to go to the bathroom. That's what I say. I got to go to the bathroom. I can't deal with it. When did you start noticing that? Was it before you met Kevin that you started getting into the coaching life, or was it after Kevin?
No, it was after Kevin. It was actually I got my certification when Kevin was sick. When we thought it was Lyme disease, it was actually interesting because when we were told that Kevin had 3 to 5 years to live, after a while, and really letting that sink in, but one day I just had this thought, like, wow, I'm a mom and I'm a wife. That's sort of how I identify myself. And my husband's going to die and my children are going to go off to college about the same time. Who am I? Like, who am I? Who am I going to be without that title of mom or wife? And
you really had to look. You really had to do some serious introspection.
Absolutely. And I realized that I didn't have anything that no one could take away. And when I found out about life coaching, we thought Kevin had Lyme disease at that point. And it was really a terrible time for me. I was running a business. I was taking care of 4 young kids, a sick husband, whether it was Lyme disease or ALS, and taking care of everything in the house. And I did it. I knew I needed to do it. You know, we're pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure. And I was certainly pushed by pain. But I have to tell you that, see, this is where I really believe that the universe has your back, because it was the greatest thing that I could have done was go through life coaching school, because I had a psychology degree. I always knew I wanted to be like a therapist or helping people in some capacity. I knew it was my purpose. I knew it was what I was here to do. But I had 4 kids now. I had a husband. How was that ever going to work? But now that I was hit with tragedy, you know, and death, and I was just like, I got to do this. Like,
Was it a means to an end, figuring, okay, when Kevin passes, I have to take care of these 4 boys? Was it a life decision?
no, I had a business. I was running a business. I had
okay.
a commercial and residential cleaning business that I ran from home. And so I had a business. It wasn't a business that gave me fulfillment by any stretch.
It was a job.
It was a job. It brought the money in. It brought money in to help with bills, to give us more freedom. We were a family of 6. You know, it was a lot to, you know, put away money for college. You know, it was extra money. So I had that. This was fulfillment. This was really following what I felt I was here to do.
Well, there's nothing more emotionally satisfying than being able to help someone.
Absolutely.
You know, when you get that person when they're deep down, and you get them through that and you coach them through it, and to see them finally smile.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was there. I was that person who was on her knees at rock bottom. So I get it. You know,
There was no other way you'd be a successful coach. There's no other way you'll be successful in any type of service-oriented business unless you know from
Unless
experience.
you've been there.
you've been there.
Been there, done that.
Absolutely. Right. When you come from a place of experience, it's not like, oh, I have this easy, beautiful life and I'm telling people, you know, you can do this, you can do that. You know, no, I was there and had to have a very, you know, honest conversation with myself. And when asking, you're a great mom and a great wife and a great sister and friend when life was beautiful, when, you know, you had everything. Who are you going to be when life's at rock bottom? Who are you going to be? Because that's a big question.
Are you the same person when adversity hits?
Yeah. And it's easy to be great. It's easy to be a great mom and a great wife and a great sister and a great friend and all of the things when life is easy and good. The real question, and, you know, we really got to dig deep when life is really at rock bottom and sort of falling apart. You know, that's the big question. Well, who are we going to be here? You know?
When adversity hits, that's really when you show who you are. Always.
Yeah.
You know, there are people when adversity hits, they get super angry, or if adversity hits, they just get pompous or they withdraw. That's the core of what it is. You know, that's the core of yourself.
Well, and I knew my kids were depending on me. You know, I mean, Kevin too, of course, but I knew that my kids needed some stability, something that they could rely on, and
You had to become their rock now.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That first client that signs on with you as a life coach, it had to be a little daunting to say, okay, now it's time for me to apply what I've learned. Was it a little overwhelming?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that anytime you do something in the beginning, it's uncomfortable, and we're not where we want to be in it.
But that's the fun time.
It's the fun time, yeah, and it's also the time that you just have to recognize that that's how we get to who we want to be and where we want to be in our profession. We have to just start, and we're not going to be as great as we are, you know, a year down the road or 2 years down the road. And certainly, my growth as a life coach has been, you know,
Plus, you got to be learning every day too.
100%. I learn from my clients.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I'm saying. You learn every day.
Different things come up, and we work through them. And
Well, I look at it in terms of this show. When we first started out, this show was a lot of fun. I mean, and I'm not saying it's not fun now. There are so many more moving parts to it now. The day that it becomes rote, the day that it becomes mechanical, that's probably the day that we're going to sign off the air for good, because it's no longer any fun.
Yeah.
But when we were starting out and we were like super hungry, and you know, we just enjoyed getting in there and mixing it up with people, It was a blast.
It
was a blast.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We still have a lot of fun now.
yeah, we do.
but-
There's a lot more pressure now. Before, when we were in the basement, we messed up. I'm like, all right, stop recording for a second. Now it's a little different. Now it's a little different with studio time. But you've had some successes, and I'm sure some people have fallen by the wayside as far as how you coach them. What do you think is, if you had to point out one of your greatest successes as far as a life coach, what?
Without mentioning names.
Yeah, please don't mention any names. So how is Jeff Bezos doing these days? No, I'm just kidding. So tell me some success stories. I want to hear more about how a life coach can work you through some issues.
I think the biggest success stories are the people who are ready and the people who are most committed to doing the work. Inner work it's work. And, I always say it's information plus application equals transformation. Without the application, you're just listening to information. You have to apply it. You have to be willing to practice thinking a little bit differently, widening your lens, shifting your perspective. And I think it's really important to do the work. I always give my clients a little homework just to apply in their everyday life before our next session to see how that's going. It takes time to change behavior. I always say a belief is just a thought you keep on thinking. Well, thoughts are energy. We have to really get clear on what we're thinking about. They say, there's a quote that says, you think you're thinking, but you're actually listening. Well, if your internal voice is constantly telling you suck and you're not enough, and,
I just tell you, shut up. He's just talking all the time behind my back. Shut up.
Someone talking to me again?
But we have to really consciously work on noticing what is that voice saying and how can we change the dialogue, because that's part of so many things that we do are because we don't think we're good enough. And it's so universal and it's so common. So many people have the I'm not enough, syndrome. And a lot of times it comes from childhood. There's so many different things.
But it seems like you practice a lot of positive speak.
Oh, yeah.
So you can take a situation where somebody would have a perspective of looking at it in a little negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Glass half full.
There's always a positive spin to everything.
Absolutely. And that's a choice is how, I truly believe that I am so fortunate that I was married for 23 years to the most amazing man who gave me 4 children, and they were 17 and 14 and had that many years to have the greatest guy as their dad and their coach. That's just how I see it.
That's why I said, that's why I hate her so much. She went through this whole thing and she's like, I'm just happy.
It's an amazing thing. No, I agree with you.
But it's important. But I do think it's important that I have my moments too.
I'm sure you
There
do.
are times that I've been at a barbecue where I have just all of a sudden teared up because something triggered me, like people talking about what spring projects they're going to do around the house. And all of a sudden I remember I don't have a partner to plan spring projects with, and tears start rolling down my eyes, and I beeline myself from the back door to the front door into my car to the cemetery, put a blanket on next to Kevin's headstone, and I just lay in the sun because I need to give myself what I need in that moment. And I do that. I take care of me just the way I take care of my kids and took care of Kevin and my coaching clients. I take care of me. And that's what I try to teach my clients to do. You have to be in the category of people you're taking care of. It's really important. So when I do have those moments of sadness, I sit with it. I allow it. It's in allowance, not resistance, that we heal. And it's really important to go there. The sadness is not allowed to move in. No way. But I'm with it, and I hear it, and I'm open to it, and then I decide that it's time to go, and then I can choose again, and then I can choose joy and choose a mindset that helps me. You can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. So it's at that point that it's time to choose again and choose what there is to be grateful for.
It's kind of like letting the sadness walk next year for a little while.
Absolutely.
And hope you're in better shape than the sadness, and you can outwalk the sadness, and then the sadness is gone.
You brought something up right there. Your kids got to spend 14 years and 17 years with a wonderful man. And I say, you've heard me say this all the time, but the loss of my grandfather was probably the greatest loss I ever felt in my life. That's 27 years ago. And it took me probably 10 years to come to this realization, to say, I didn't lose him. I only got to spend 22 years with him. How lucky am I got to spend 22 years with him? Most people don't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
When I changed that mindset in my head, I stopped what I consider my grieving, and I started my celebration.
Yes. And what better way to honor your grandfather than to be celebrating his life, for him to be looking down and knowing that you are joyful and that you're enjoying your life and celebrating his. And I think that there's no more, there's no bigger respect. It's interesting. My children had a baseball game. Kevin died at 2:00 in the morning. And I came home and my children had a baseball game, and I had written the eulogy already. A couple of friends had sat with me and helped me. And the theme of it was the game must go on. And I called a girlfriend at 7:00 in the morning. Kevin had just passed 5 hours earlier in hospice. And I said to her, I'm going to give the boys the opportunity or the choice to play in the baseball game. And she said, of course you are. The game must go on. And 2 of them were an immediate yes, and 2 of them were unsure. Mom, don't you think it's a little weird that we would play baseball on the day that our father died? And I said, well, it depends how you look at it. It is what you did
Exactly.
with your dad most often. How wonderful for you to honor his life by playing a baseball game on the day that he died. And he's going to have the best seat in the house and with all the angels, and his mom, who you've never met, and his dad, who, was their grandfather and had passed away 2 years prior. He's going to get to watch you guys play. And it was a beautiful day. The athletic director did spoke a few words and did a moment of silence. It was a beautiful sunny day. They played Butler, which is where Kevin graduated high school. They won. They were all so happy that they played, and it was just magnificent.
No wonder you're a successful life coach, because you speak about your husband who died from this awful disease, and you have a smile on your face the entire time. I want to throw up right now.
I told you. She's not coming in. I feel like a giant pile of shit.
Yeah, I'm not feeling so good about my life, because it's
My mother was 83 when she passed away, and she'd say, we liked you much better when you were negative and you talked about people. Now you have no judgment. You're so positive.
But I'll bet you that experience losing your husband has made you such a more effective life coach, such a more effective podcaster, and now it's even led you to writing a book.
Yes. Oh,
okay.
Yes.
And this. By the time this show airs, the book should be out.
Yes.
That's got to be exciting.
It's so exciting. It's
Yeah.
so exciting. I'm so proud of this book. And it was something that kept coming up. And I've mentioned the universe before. I truly believe the universe sort of taps you on the shoulder, kind of, gives you a little push, and then smack in the head. It's like, come on, aren't you catching on what you're supposed to be doing? And it kept coming up about writing a book, just different places. People were like, you should write a book. You should write a book. I blog a lot. I'm big on social media, and I write a lot. I find it to be very cathartic. And I put a post that I wrote in a big Facebook community, and the response was unbelievable. And every time I thought about writing a book, I thought, gosh, that feels so overwhelming. How could I write a whole book? And after I wrote this blog and posted it in this group, I think there was like 400 comments, and so many people said, this is the most beautiful post that I've ever read. Are you an author? And all of a sudden, I said, how could I write a book? Sort of turned into, how can I not? How can I not? And
It's weird when you have that inside of you, like it's bubbling up inside of you
Yes.
that I got something in here and I just don't
Yes.
know how to get it out.
Yes. Well, and the beautiful part for me, not only was it cathartic to go through everything and to write it and to really be in my feelings with
Is the
all
Suffering
that.
Podcast in it?
She asked me to write the foreword for it.
Okay, all right. And everything was really going bad, and I went on the Suffering Podcast. And everything changed. Everything changed. What's the name of the book?
Raising Hope.
Oh wow!
And-
It's like this constant bombardment of positivity.
Well, it has two meanings for me. So raising hope is because I was raising these 4 boys and they were young. And I, like I said, Aiden was in 5th grade. The boys were in 8th grade when Kevin was diagnosed. So I was really raising them with hope in their hearts that there would be life after this awful, however it turned out. And also raising hope in the reader. I really had to think about what is the purpose of this book. And I knew it was to give people who are going through, whether it's death or some sort of any kind of circumstance that brings you to your
Depression, anything
knees.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. For them to have hope, to give them strength and hope. And for me to honor Kevin in another way, by writing this book and by giving people something, with our story. Oh my gosh, how beautiful. It's like I feel like I'm just taking him along with me. And it helps so much ease the grief because he's still such a big part of everything that I do. And I think for my kids too, it's really beautiful. He's not
And
forgotten.
I guarantee there's a lot of Kevin in that book.
Yes.
Just
absolutely.
the thoughts behind what you're putting on paper. Kevin's in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's nice to be able to get that stuff out of you, that stuff that's inside, that stuff that's holding you back. Mike and I can attest to this when we tell the things that we've gone through. For me, when I just release it, you're able to, you've been carrying that burden on your back for so long, and you just
Yeah, absolutely.
The armor.
the armor.
Well, and you realize
20-year
things-
squat.
You realize things too. Like the book is full of lessons, things that I learned along the way. Every chapter has a little lesson at the end of the chapter, and then there's actually a whole chapter about different things that happened and what they taught me. And my hope is to help people see things a little bit differently, or make them think a different way, or maybe, and certainly give them hope, and recognize that there is life after death and you can be happy again. It's a different happy, but it's a happy and it's possible. And I think anytime someone can be the example of what's possible, that's just
I think without hope, it's sure death.
absolutely.
Without hope. We had a discussion before we went on air. Our friend Charlie Cifarelli suffered some medical issues, and my main concern with him was you can't lose hope. You can't lose hope because once you lose hope, you're done.
Yeah.
And I said those words to him. Maybe it was a little harsh for me to say it. You're done without hope, and he's on his way back.
Well, I mean, look at all the people that are lost to suicide. They gave up hope.
Yeah.
That was it. It
Yeah.
was just like there's no. You hear the saying, no, there's no hope anymore.
Yeah.
Once you give up hope, that's it.
I read an acronym for hope was hold on, pain ends. And I thought,
that's pretty
it's
cool.
good.
I like that.
Hold on,
good.
pain ends. I've heard that before. I've heard that from I can't remember where I heard it, but I've been there where I was without hope, and it is a dark place to be.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to pull people out of that dark place, and that's why you're here, and that's why you're here.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write this book?
Oh my gosh. I sat down in May.
I'm going to say it took her like 5 minutes.
No.
because-
Well, it's interesting. So I mapped it out in May when I had to have each chapter, what the chapters would be about. And I was sending it to my sister-in-law who was going to edit it by Labor Day. And I sent it 2 days early. And it's like I I wrote in the book, it's like my fingers hit the keyboards and just did a dance that my heart, like it had already been written in my heart. And it was just so easy. What's interesting is that now that we're so close to being published, and I hired a publisher and an editor and all that, and I keep changing things. And it's funny because my nephew is a big artist, very successful artist, and he says his paintings are never finished. And I'm finding that to be with the book. Like I finally said, okay, that's it. I sent it back and I said, I promise
that's human
we're
beings.
done. Yeah, because you can always
You're
make
never
it
finished.
a little better. You can,
But it's with what ifs. Well, what if I put it this way?
Right.
What if
This
I
might be better. Maybe they'll understand it better this way.
Does it sound better?
Yeah.
So I think if you ever were finished with it, there would probably be a bigger problem than it being always having that doubt in your head that it's maybe I could just add this one little thing in there.
Yeah, you just have to get to a point. But what I love is that my sister's an artist and she painted the cover, and my niece, who is just getting her PhD, she's a clinical psychologist. She wrote the foreword. So it's just
We
so
expect
near
that
to
right here, just so you know.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Autographed
yes.
copy.
Autograph copy. We have
Absolutely.
We've been collecting autographed copies of books from authors.
I love
So it's
that.
really a wonderful thing.
But you know, it's good. We got to get her autograph now because after she comes out with her like fifth and sixth book, and she's on Oprah Winfrey one day, she'll say to suffering who?
We got to get the first edition because that way when we're short on money, we can sell it and make a little bit of money.
We can hawk it.
And where's it going to be available?
It'll be available on Amazon. I think Barnes and Noble too. I think a few more places.
Barnes and Noble's still around?
There are a few.
Yes, there is. There's one in
Yeah,
Clifton.
yeah, there are a few. Yeah. So I'm hoping to maybe do some book signings at some like local bookstores. So
Place from Ridgewood.
Yep, Ridgewood, there's
Yeah.
one. I think Sparta, there's one. I made a list. So I'm hoping.
Are you doing the audiobook?
I'm going to do the audiobook. Absolutely.
Please read it.
It's interesting
Yeah,
because the
she's got the great voice for it.
Well, my nephew said to me, he said, Aunt Laurice, you have the most calming voice. And when I went to talk to the publisher, they said, okay, we're going to do the part of your package is an audiobook. Do you want a male voice or a female voice? I said, oh, no, I want my voice. and not because I think I have a calming voice, because it's my story. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You
and
can
I want to
emphasize.
tell exactly.
You can emphasize better.
Exactly.
You don't want like a monotone.
Yeah.
Just going through the motions of it.
Yeah, I want the feeling to be there because there's a lot of feelings that go along with telling the story. And
with most books, and these days I still enjoy reading, but I don't get the chance to sit down and read anymore. So I do a lot of audiobooks. I gravitate towards audiobooks that are read by the authors because of that emphasis. I think there's like 2 books out there, or one of them's a series that are read by somebody other than the author that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, okay.
I really
sense.
got
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was David Goggins' First of All Can't Hurt Me, and his new one Never Finished. The other one was the Jack Carr series, about James Reese. They just did the Amazon Prime movie with Chris Pratt.
Oh, okay.
So that was read by a guy who he was a professional. Like he really knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
The voiceover guys.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But when you're reading your own words, nobody can read your words better than you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. 100%.
Well, we're looking forward to that coming out. So let's do some plugs. I know you got Aligned and Awakened.
Yes.
You got A Mindful Journey. Let's find out where we can find you.
Okay, absolutely. So I have my podcast that I host, Aligned and Awakened. We are going to our 3rd season this year, 2023. I have a Facebook group called Rise, because that's what we do. We reimagine, rebuild, and we rise. I have my mindfuljourney.ld. That's my Instagram. So that's a mindfuljourney.ld. I post all kinds of inspiration there.
Go figure.
And all these links, just so you know, will be on every social media post. They'll be under the links on our YouTube channel. So if you want to, everybody, I encourage you to go check out Laurice. She's an amazing person, somebody who I draw a lot of strength from.
As you could tell, listening to this.
Yeah, it's
she really is.
Thank you.
It's like the anti-suffering podcast.
Exactly.
It's just.
But you'd never know she went through suffering.
No,
but I did. That's what's so important for everybody to know. I did, and still could have
another episode,
some moments,
where. But
I know how to I know how to just work through it. I don't push it away.
Compartmentalize it.
Yeah, I don't push it away. It's there for a reason, and I honor that. With that being said, we're going on to 5 years. April 18th will be 5 years since Kevin's passing. So my hope is that I can be the example of what's possible after, losing the love of your life and having 4 children, that you really have to pick up the pieces because you really want to ensure that, that they know that it really is going to be okay, even when you're not 100% sure.
Nobody's 100% okay. And if you said you were, I'd consider you a liar, and I don't consider you a liar.
Yeah.
Do you do anything on April 18th? Is there any kind of like memorial services
so
or anything?
we have the kindness cards. So what we did the first year was ask that everybody do an act of kindness in honor of Kevin. Kindness. I also have a Kindness Matters. It's called the Kindness Matters Mission, and it's a scholarship that we give to high school seniors for kindness. And it's really a wonderful nonprofit.
The Duffy Quartet.
It's inspired by Kevin, but because he was so kind, and we did the kindness cards at his service and went through over 2,000 of them. Wow. People were, the ripple effect was just unbelievable. So that's what we did. But after the first year, no, there's nothing that we do that is like a yearly tradition. All the boys are in college.
I'll bet you they remember it, though.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. First call that morning. Mom, how you doing today?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Laurice,
what was it? Butler put up a nice statue, too, right?
Kinnelon did.
Oh, was it Kinnelon?
Kinnelon did. Yeah, put a really nice statue, and I got to
how old would Kevin have been?
Well, he was 53, so he would be 58.
He would be 58. He's because I know somebody from Kinnelon. I'm going to ask. I'll see him tomorrow. I'll actually.
Well, Kevin was born and raised in Butler, though, right?
He was, Bloomingdale.
Okay.
He was born and raised in Bloomingdale, but a lot of people in Kinnelon know him because he coached everything.
I'm going to ask him. I never thought about that. So again, one of the questions that we always stick with. You've gone through this life. You've gone through all this different stuff. You come out on the other side. You're one of the most positive people. You speak positively. You really give people hope. You're raising hope with your new book. You're aligning and awakening people. It's just amazing, all the stuff that you're doing. But you're suffering. What do you think it's taught you?
I think it's taught me to be present. I think it's taught me to live in the moment. And it's certainly taught me to be grateful for everything that is, rather than regretful for everything that isn't. And I think that it's also taught me to really focus on where my power is, rather than craving power and control where I don't have it.
Laurice, it's always a pleasure to have you in here. And you are always welcome. You're part of our family. You have been from the very, very beginning. And I'm interested to see where you're going in the future, because some of the things that come out of your mouth, I'm a big fan of, say, like Jordan Peterson. Okay, I love listening to Jordan Peterson, because some of the things that come out of his mouth, you sort of think about and you ruminate on, and you're like, okay, now how do I apply that to my life? And the same thing from you. You say these certain things, and I just sort of sit back and I get lost in your words, where I'm like, okay, I'm looking forward to all the stuff that you're going to do.
Thank you so much.
And let us know if you're having book signings and everything.
Yes.
Because I would love,
I'll
definitely go, and maybe we'll try to get some of our dented family up there to.
Oh, I would love that. All the support, is so appreciated.
We'll get our Laurice
Be careful
signs.
what you ask for. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Be careful what you ask for. It'll be like a WWE event. A bunch of guys showing up with body paint on.
Like the Raider Nation with the shoulder pads and spikes.
Laurice, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Laurice,
Thank
like
you,
I said,
Kevin.
you are a wonderful person. You make me hate myself, but you really are a wonderful person. And like I said, Kevin was a great guy.
Thank you.
At least I know one good Kevin. And unfortunately, he's.
You guys are always fun to be with. So thank you so much for having me back. I really enjoy hanging out with both of you.
Anytime you want to come.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. Don't forget to check out popple.com. Go to popple.com, put in TSP20 for a nice 20% discount on your own digital business card. And as always, let's think about all the stuff that we learned today. See around your own blind spots. Don't run from the truth, search for answers. Decide and choose who you're going to be. You're either pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure, but most importantly, hold on, pain ends. Hope.
So good.
That is so good. That's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. Don't forget you can always listen before you watch on Sundays. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.